So we, as Amanda mentioned, we've done these platinum prints back here, and each of these is 2 prints, all but one of them is 2 different images, similar but different images, and one is cut vertically, one is cut horizontally. This one with the sunflowers is 2 prints of the same negative, and then again cut vertically and one horizontally, and then woven together. So they're not cut with any measure. We cut to highlight whatever it is we want to highlight. We
different exposures.
they might be 2 different exposures, and we weave them the same way, so it's not just over under. And platinum is an older process. It's about 150.
1870.
And this, so we can't buy paper that is already coated in this, so we get to play a little chemistry and coat the paper. On some of these you can see brush strokes where we've coated the paper. And others we've matted them in so it doesn't show. Some people like it one way, some the other way, so we like to show both. It's also a contact printing process, meaning whatever size your negative is, that's what you get. That's the size image that you get. So these are made with 8x10 negatives. So we had that cloth over the head camera, and then it's printed with UV light. So it could be sunlight. We have UV bulbs that are set up to do that, so we can control that because the light changes throughout the day, throughout the year, and of course sometimes you have no direct sunlight, but you just need UV.
Well, I think the kind of camera we have used is similar to Amanda's, right in the middle room. Different features,
they're different sizes.
Essentially the same kind of format. And it gives you a big negative, which when put next to the coated platinum paper, gives you the image.
Meaning in direct contact with it. And you have to do those in direct contact because you can't enlarge with this process because unlike the black and white, you need a lot more time to print, and that means the light can bounce around a little more and you lose all your edges and your details.
Well, with UV images, it's very difficult to enlarge it because you don't have the same facilities as you do with black and white. You can't push the bellows up or the lens up and UV light. There's no real practical source of a UV light for photography.
This is another example. The cyanotypes that were done here last month, that's a contact printing process. So everything that made an image here was directly on the surface that's being printed.
So can you dodge and burn?
You can, but it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, do you do it much with cyanotype? It's hard to do. So sometimes with a negative, she's asking about dodging and burning, mean expose something a little more or less than the rest of it. And it's tricky because you've got this in your light source, and so you'd have to cover something up, cover up either what you don't want to get more light, and it can, and you'd have to be fairly exact, but not too much because you don't want lines either from that. So we try to avoid that. We try to get really good negatives so we don't have to do that. And as we mentioned, we use film negatives, so we process the film also. We use a commercially handmade paper. So it's handmade, but not by us. And it has to be a really well-made paper because this requires a lot of washing. So papers that most of us have made, if we've made any, they kind of come apart when they get wet. So we don't mess with that. And this particular paper that we use is also spec'd by the paper designer to work optimally with this and maybe some other processes similar to this. So we mix our chemistries, we coat the paper, and then we expose. We talked about that. And then after our exposures are dry, or maybe even before, but at some point we will scan the negatives, and then we print those out on plain paper because we don't want to cut these till we know where we want to cut. So we just use plain paper prints and cut them and try weaving that. And if maybe we want to change the cuts, okay, make another print on the printer, and that's easy enough to do. And
I've lost quite a few hairs over this process.
I mentioned to him that we should try something like this, and he said, cut the platinum print?
Really?
Because they really do have platinum in them, so they're not real cheap. But and so we'll make test weaves, one or more. And sometimes it's just a matter of weaving it differently. We're okay with the cuts, but we try different weaves, change that up a little bit. And then after we finished with that, then we finished weaving we've cut now and woven the actual platinums to match our sample. And then we tighten everything up. And you still get some little spaces in here because of the paper's rigid. It's not like a yarn that will bend to go in and out of there. And we tighten it up and secure the ends. So every one of those, you've actually got 2 layers on everything. So every end is spot glued to the one in back or front, depending on what it is. And then we photograph it because we usually want to have a record of it. If we sell it, we want to make another one, or if just to put online, we have to have some kind of record of it. And you can't scan them because they're now 3-dimensional. Once they're woven, they're 3-dimensional, and it's not all in focus when you scan it.
Oh.
Yeah. So then we have to. I sit by the computer with the print here and the computer here, trying to match the colors, which can be kind of nerve-wracking sometimes. But that, and we also then, because it's you can see that you get little shadows and stuff from the light. So when we photograph it, we try to get some of that, not in direct light, but get a little bit of shadow from the image that'll help it show up in a digital image.
Other than that, there's nothing to it. We have brought with us 2 books if anybody is interested in the process.
And we also have a couple prints that are not behind glass,
Oh.
so you can see that. We have one woven and then one that went into that woven. And then this one is part of one of these other images, that one over there.
What was it that got you into the weaving part of it?
I have done some weaving with fabric, many years ago, and I do really appreciate the designs in weaves and the way things are constructed. That's always something that's interested me. Maybe this isn't something you can wear or anything like that, but it just interested me.
Trying to see if it keeps just fairly even
No.
sizes, or do you vary those?
No, we vary the sizes based on how we want it to be. On this one, I wanted to see how intricate I could make it. So this one has the most cuts. And then I tried to make it a twill. So it kind of goes this way, but sometimes you just want something brought forward that isn't there at the time,
Right.
so it's not perfect like that.
In one way, it's a major headache finding the design that you want for the image, but in other ways, it gives you great freedom to modify and change the image from just a straight photograph.
Yeah, even this one where it's two of the same image, you'll notice that there are extra fingers on this hand.
And are
Because things
these,
just move.
are these still lives that you generally construct? Do you find
We
them?
did, I mean, some of them might be found objects, but we constructed the scene.
Was there a prime inspiration? Someone that did this in the past?
No, nobody that we know of has done this.
So this is organically generated by.
Right. We did see something some years back that somebody had taken, he had digitally enlarged a negative so that, he might have taken, I think it was even a digital negative, but it might not have been. It might have been a negative this size, but he made it like this, and then he cut that into pieces and then printed each one individually. And you can't, even if you print them one after another, you can't get them exactly the same color of brown or density or something. There's just I suppose if you had a very controlled environment, because the humidity can change it slightly, the temperature can change it slightly, and you'll see that even most of these have some difference in the two different prints.
He didn't weave them together, he sewed the corners together.
Yeah.
So if he had 4 or 8 images, they were attached one to the other
It was all one
by
image.
some sort
Just
of threads.
Who was it? Remember?
I can't remember.
Because I think
right
I've seen that work.
And
Yeah.
it was very nice work.
Little
Yeah,
red,
it was
he
good.
used little red threads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool work.
I forget the name of the gallery.
can't-
in
Yeah.
Houston.
It was Colquitt Gallery. Where it was
That's
some-
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
John Cleary. Work.
Yeah.
Right. I think it was already Colquitt
Yeah.
at that point. But yeah. So, any questions?
Beautiful work.
Thank you.
I love how you can take a family photo and do something unique and different.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, we have, now, there's only 2 people in this one, as you can see here.
Oh, you're
And
right,
we
yeah.
found that it's really hard to do that with more, because we move people. So they might be just one on top of the other, like this, although here it's 2 different people.
I didn't even notice that. I didn't. That's,
But we found that with more than 2 people, it just gets too crazy. And nobody is in any way recognizable, which might be okay with
Right.
them, but I mean, it doesn't really reflect people
I
necessarily.
love that, even for a couple,
Mhm.
you know, husband and wife, to just see yourself. It's really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, guys. This has been great.
Maybe you say 15 pages.
You say 15.